Hello, today I'm coming to you from my kitchen and I'm going to show you 3 awesome ways to preserve leaves for gel printing. I'm going to test each method side by side. I'm going to tell you which method is the fastest for preserving leaves. I'm going to tell you which method allows the plants to last the longest, which methods actually preserve the colour of the plants, and finally, which of the methods gives you plants that's easiest to use on the gel plate. Now, I'm going to warn you now, I did go a little bit overboard. I mean, just look at all these plants and then just look at all these prints. Now, we won't go through all these because it'll be far too much. And when it comes to the printing side, let me tell you, this wasn't even half of it. It's so easy to get carried away. We all know the traditional way of preserving plants, where you get a big pile of books and you leave them there for several weeks and, well, who wants to wait that long? The methods I'm going to show you today are firstly using an iron and secondly using the microwave. Well, who knew you could do that? And thirdly, there's another method using glycerin. Now, I cover this in detail in a separate video, which you can see here. And you should stick around to the end because whilst I was printing, I discovered something pretty cool, which was unexpected, but has opened up a whole new raft of ideas for me. So without further ado, let's get on with the preserving. So let me start off by showing you the ironing method. What you need is, you need your trusty iron, you need a couple of pieces of printer paper, you need some kitchen roll, kitchen paper, and you need some baking paper. Oh, and of course, most importantly, I've got some plants. So what have I got here? I've got a piece of fern from my house plant. So don't forget, it doesn't have to just be garden plants. I've got some basil, I've got flowering plum, I've got some thyme. These are 2 different types of coleus leaf. And oh God, I just love that. Look at the pink on there against the burgundy. It's just stunning. I love it. I've got a variegated hibiscus there, and that's off a tree in my garden. So what's the setup? We have to make a plant sandwich. What I do is first I put down a piece of baking paper. This is to protect my ironing board. Secondly, you'll find that when you press the plants, basically what you're trying to do is remove the moisture from the leaf. So if you put down some kitchen paper, that gives the moisture somewhere to go. Then we put the copy paper or printer paper and our plants, another piece of copy paper on top, like that. Kitchen paper into the sandwich to absorb any liquid. And then finally, another sheet of baking paper to protect my iron. So I've got the iron set to cottons and no steam. And I'm just going to move it around across the top of the plants. Now it takes a little longer than I would have guessed to dry out the plants. And you can keep lifting the paper to check how they're going. If they're sticking to the paper, they're probably not ready yet. That one's done. Nice and dry. Come on. Yep, that's done. So let's take a look at how they came out. The top leaves on this one came out really well. I'd say the bottom ones wrinkled up a bit. This one came out nice and flat. Hibiscus, thyme pressed well, but what I found is the problem with these is they get very brittle, particularly if they've got the little leaves on them. This has got a bit of wrinkling, but I think it'll press well, fine into the gel plate and give a good print. That one came out well. Looks like it came out well enough. They're not bad. I think this method is good if you don't want to hang around and wait for the long press under books. And it's also great if you like ironing. Said no one ever. Hang around. I'm now going to show you the microwave method, which, spoiler alert, I think is pretty awesome. Come on, look. So the setup for the microwave method is pretty much the same as for the ironing method. Let me show you. Now, I don't think you really need the greaseproof paper with this one, unless you just want something to keep a little bit more firm. But you definitely need the kitchen roll because you get a lot more moisture out of the microwave method than you did with the ironing methods. Kitchen paper, copy paper, the same selection of plants on, although I've added that bit of dill. Then put a piece of copy paper on top. Then you need to put it on something that will go in your microwave that's got a flat bottom. My microwave happens to come with this big baking dish, big glass baking dish, so that's perfect for me to do several plants at a time. If your microwave doesn't fit quite such a large piece of paper in, you might have to do just a few plants at a time. So they're sitting on a nice flat bottom, and then you want something flat to go on the top. So again, I've got this baking dish which should pretty much cover all my plants and weight them down. So that is what we're going to put in the microwave. And you have to experiment depending on how powerful your microwave is, but I'm going to start this off for 30 seconds, I think, and then we'll have a look at it. My microwave's 1000 watts. So put it in for 30 seconds and let that go. Do a little dance while you're waiting. 30 seconds can seem like a long time sometimes. So let's have a sneaky peek, see how it's going. Yeah, they're not ready yet. I'm not going to pull that all the way up. But they do look like they're pressing really nicely. Let's get the kitchen roll on there. I mean, I actually said to you, for this method, you need the kitchen roll because you get a lot more moisture. Just talk amongst yourselves for a while. I microwaved in 30-second intervals and then kept checking, and I reckon it took about 4 or 5 minutes before they were fully dry. These are all nicely dry. That's kept a lot of colour. Love that. So let's take them back to the ironing board and we can compare them. So a quick comparison. These have pressed a lot flatter than the ironing method. The colour is much better. I mean, look at that hibiscus leaf. It just looks like I've spattered paint on it. It's beautiful. This one sort of went brown. That one stayed nice and creamy. They're a little bit more robust than the ironed one. As you can see, this just easily loses its fronds. That's wrinkly. That's nice and flat and smooth. Colour preserved much better on that one than on this one. Same with that. You can see that variegation in the middle of the leaf. It's totally gone in that one, and the leaf has wrinkled up. Not that much difference with the fern. I still prefer the microwave method. And this piece of dill came out great. It's very robust, perfectly flat. That's going to give an awesome print. So just out of interest, I wondered if you could over microwave them. So I put these plants back in for another minute to see what would happen. And to be honest, I don't think there's much change. So I don't think you need to be too worried about over microwaving. This one went brown a little bit, but it was brown before. I noticed there's a little bit of browning starting at the tips here, but the whole leaves feels really nice and dry. Same with this one. This one, it feels pretty robust. It's going to stand up well, I reckon, on the gel plate. And this. So I'm going to start pulling some prints side by side. I'm going to use this paper that I got from the Daiso shop. It's called calligraphy paper. It's white and it's normal thickness. I don't actually like this paper. It has a tendency to rip and stick. So I'm hoping it's going to be okay for this project, but I just want to use it up. I'm going to use Amsterdam Acrylic Standard Series in Olive Green Deep and Titan Buff Light. Let's get straight in there with some olive green deep. Roll out a layer of that. It's actually a little bit thick. If you get the paint too thick, you don't get a nice clear print. It comes out a bit smudgy. I'll just grab my brayer off sheet here. So if you get too much paint on your gel plate, just rolls it off there. So I put on my 3 plants, the one I preserved using the ironing method, the microwave method, and also the glycerin method that you can see in my previous video. I have to admit, I spent rather too long fiddling about and trying to work out how to arrange the 3 fronds on the gel plate, and my acrylic paint started to dry. Let's see how that comes out. Should be enough to tell. So I lay down my sheet of paper and I start pressing around my plants. And as I'm doing this, I can tell that I fiddled around too long positioning my plants and that my paint has started to dry. I can tell that the paint is not wet and it's not sticking very well to my paper. But I carry on, pushing carefully around the stems to try and pick up as much as I possibly can. I'm a bit disappointed as I lift up my plants, but as I look in closely, I can see that I do seem to have got a reasonable amount of texture transfer. So I thought, well, I'll just carry on and see what happens anyway. Hopefully there's still enough information there to be able to compare the different preserving methods. Get out my hairdryer and make sure it's fully dry before I apply the pickup layer. I'm using the Titan Buff Light from Amsterdam, and I'm going to roll out a nice even layer across the full print, making sure I get complete coverage of all the print below to ensure that it adheres well to the paper and picks up nice and cleanly. Smoothing my paper on, make sure that's all dry before we start to pull it. It's a hairdryer. Now, one way you can tell if it's dry, can you see I've got a little bit of wrinkling here? Some papers have a tendency to do that. While those wrinkles are there, I know it's probably a bit too damp. It also feels kind of cool to the touch. So if I give it a little whiz with the hairdryer, so as it dries, the paper contracts again and you lose any of those little wrinkles. So flip it over and then pull. Ooh, that's actually pretty nice. So what do we have there? Well, I like the way the microwave one came out. Really nice. So that's the one we preserved with the iron, then the microwave, and then the glycerin. I really think they all gave just as good print quality. And whilst the dark edges weren't exactly what I was aiming for, I don't really mind them. I think it kind of gives the print a moody look. And it is gel printing, so sometimes you get what you get. So what was the amazing thing that I told you to hang on for? Come and have a look. This was the amazing thing. Microwave. Look how beautifully the microwave preserved these flowers. Just look at the colours. So out of all 3 methods, what I love about the microwave method is, I guess, A, how quick it was, and B, how it has preserved the colour so well. It preserved the colour better than any of the other methods, which has given me the idea now that these can actually also be used in mixed media art. I just think some of these results are stunning. Beautiful. So in conclusion, number 1, they all gave great results. Use fresh if it's the right time of year. Obviously it's quick and easy, you just pick them and print with them. Traditional pressed plants under books, not much work to create, worked well on the plate, they lasted a long time, but the preserving method takes a long time to complete. The glycerin method gave the most lifelike plants. It wasn't a lot of work to preserve them. It took less time than the traditional drying method, but obviously more time than the microwave method. You had to leave it in the bucket of glycerin for at least a week. The resulting plants were great to work with, and surprisingly, they've been long-lasting. They haven't dried out at all. The method was good for rehydrating dried plants, which otherwise you would have just had to throw away. And I was surprised how it made crumbly plants like thyme usable so that their leaves didn't all drop off. It was also great for leathery leaves like gum tree leaves because it made them a bit more soft and pliable and easier to use on the gel plate. On the other hand, it wasn't very good for delicate plants and flowers. They just tended to go far too floppy and weren't very usable. The ironing method, whilst it was fairly quick to dry the plants, it probably took the most personal effort. Like you had to iron for probably 10 minutes to get them dry enough to use. Also, the plants didn't last as long as when preserved with the other methods. I found by the next day that a lot of the leaves had wrinkled up some. They didn't stay nice and flat. Also, I noted that some delicate plants like thyme wouldn't keep their leaves. In summary, I don't really know why you would use this method over the microwaving method, unless you didn't have a microwave. And finally, the microwave method. It was super quick to create the dried plants. It was not too much effort, and the resulting plant has been very long lasting. It stayed flat and in great condition. They also gave surprisingly good print results, and I love the way it preserved the colour of both the leaves and the flowers. I can see lots of possibilities to use those in the future. So there we have it. Everything you wanted to know about preserving plants and probably more besides. If you're interested in learning about the papers I like to use for my gel prints and for my collage work, I've made a free ebook which you're welcome to download. I'll attach a link to it down below. Do look out for all my other videos on gel printing, plant preserving and printing with botanicals. My name is Amber from Amber Benson Art. I hope to see you again soon. Bye!